Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our work session of Tuesday, March 28th, 2023. I apologize, we're running a little behind today. Can I have a motion to open the work session, please?
I move to open the work session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we are running a little late. For those of you who are on later topics on the work session, feel free to put us on mute and watch a good show, and we'll get back to you as soon as we are ready, because first we are going to talk about, we do the culvert first or the wireless? The Route 120 culvert, and we have, I think, the New York State Department of Transportation.
Right. Richard Frisante is on. So as the board is aware, but the community may not be, there is a culvert that runs under 120 in the vicinity of Kip, and the community has probably noticed a significant dip in the road that's
It's
been
like a
built in.
sinkhole, so.
Yes, it's sort of like a sinkhole. That's because
Yes.
the culvert needs to be replaced. It's the pipe that runs under Route 120 that takes water from one side of the road to the other. We have been in conversations with DOT as to the best way to replace the road with the minimal impact to the community. We've got Richard Frisante from DOT who's going to be sharing his screen. We've also got the contractor and other members of the DOT team who's here to explain to the board tonight a 6-week project over the summer that's going to hopefully keep the inconvenience to our residents down to a minimum. Richard, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen. I have a quick presentation, but it's mostly going to be speaking.
Okay,
Right.
Okay, hopefully you are now seeing my screen
Yes.
with a road view and a side view
Mm-hmm.
of the culvert under Route 120. As noted, it's in very bad shape, predates World War II. There's a big sinkhole in the road, and also undermining of the culvert that could sort of be seen in the photo. So the initial plan was to try to do this with the road open. However, partly and mostly because the detour is kind of lengthy, we were going to alternate vehicle traffic one direction each way with signals while maintaining pedestrian and bicycle movements. And that was probably going to take at least 4 months of interrupting the roadway. Additionally, those local driveways nearby were going to be hard to get in and out with a traffic signal there. So as we've gone through the coordination with the town, we did have an issue with the overhead wire utility relocations being delayed. So our contractor Transit could not get out there as early as they were hoping. Additionally, the intersection at Kip complicates matters. And even though the road would technically be open, we do expect that would have been pretty lengthy delays in both directions, especially at rush hour. So based on some success with the other locations in this contract, some of which also had kind of long detours, and coordinating with the town, we've now gone to a full road closure option, which is expected to significantly reduce the amount of impact, although the impact will be a little bit more severe. So the plan is to close the roadway the day after the 4th of July, on July 5th, and the road will be reopened by August 18th. This should allow easier access through the driveways, although they will only be able to go one direction. And again, we will be maintaining the pedestrians and bicycle traffic throughout the full project. So just a quick view of, the detour route. We're using New York State routes only. We are not allowing, we are not closing any local roadways, but we are signing them in a way to hopefully prohibit and prevent trucks and through traffic from going on your local road. We have been sending the detour plan to Bob Cioli and Bart Perry, and they're giving us input, so we're working back and forth with the town to make sure that everything can be accommodated. So the global detour route with the culvert kind of in the bottom left would be Route 120, Route 133, and Route 117 as a loop. We are not directing traffic to Roaring Brook Road, but we are also not prohibiting them from Roaring Brook Road. Locally, I don't have the panels, but locally there will be a plan like this showing certain signs at certain intersections with an emphasis on trying to keep people from using the local roads as a detour. I'll run quickly through the pedestrian staging. We plan to keep the sidewalk open during the first stage while the majority of the road is cut open. They will build a portion of the culvert on the east side of the road, move the pedestrians over there while they take away the pedestrian bridge and complete the work on the other side of the road. They will complete the final sidewalk and move pedestrians back to the sidewalk prior to paving and reopening the road. So that is, in a nutshell, the big plan. And we do anticipate, this is the 4th out of 4 culverts in this contract, and have gone pretty smoothly, about as smoothly as could be expected at the other 3 sites. So I have full confidence in the design office, and the department has full confidence that the stated closure window will be more than enough to get this work done and hopefully minimize the impact to the town.
Okay.
Just so that the board is aware, we have had meetings with first responders, our fire departments, Millwood, Chappaqua, CVAC. We've also engaged our chief of police, Chappaqua Transportation, because there is going to be camp buses during this period of time. There is a local detour that Richard didn't really speak about. The detour that he was referring to was truck traffic. Locally, residents will be able to take Kip to Hardscrabble to Douglas and just come around. So it's just a little bit of a loop that they'll be doing to be able to get themselves around the detour because 120 will be closed in both directions. But in speaking with all of our first responders, they felt comfortable with the detours. Seth Coleman told me that his large buses are able to negotiate that Kip Street to Hardscrabble, not a problem at all. That's where his buses normally go, so he didn't have an issue with it. Again, CVAC, police department, our 2 fire departments, everybody's on board with it.
Also, Jill, I think, and everyone, I think that this is the far better option to have this done quickly over the summer, relatively quickly, rather than when school is on, even though you'll have the camp buses, to have all the school buses engaged in this kind of detour would be a nightmare.
Right.
So we've had many meetings, and I know that nobody likes a construction, and certainly no one likes a road closure, but given the amount of time this was gonna take, if we kept one lane open versus closing it and being able to do this in a very, expedited time frame, and as Vicky said, when school is out, and people are potentially going away, maybe not commuting as much over the summer, I think this is a much better option, and I will apologize in advance to every resident, but this is very important that we get this work done. So we're trying to find the most expeditious and least invasive way to do this, and I think this is the right way to go.
Couple quick questions. Is anything able to be prefabbed before you bring it to save time?
Yes, everything is prefabricated. It does take time to excavate, remove the old one, and build. The staging won't add a significant amount of time for the pedestrians, but that also needs to be done properly. There's also a gas main and a water main that needs to be supported underneath.
And only a gas main and water main? That doesn't sound so hard.
Only that, that's all.
Also, is a concern if you pushed it back a little bit, it would run up too close to the school year? The reason why I ask that is, a lot of people go away in this town towards the middle end of August, and this is proposed at worst to end mid-August. There'll be far less people after camp is gone in that window of the last few weeks. Is it a concern that it just might run up to school and you don't want to push it back to that point in time?
Yes.
So we did discuss that with the town. The theory of doing it with this time frame is worst case scenario, that would give an extra week or two before school started. Although again, it is not expected that that will need to take place.
And
I'd rather plan for it taking longer and hope it never does than be stuck.
the last question, I swear. When you reference Roaring Brook Road, can you just explain you're not precluding truck? What do you explain what you mean that you're not going to?
We're not going to change. So we did not want to direct all of the truck traffic onto Roaring Brook Road, which then of course crosses the sawmill at a traffic light and the train tracks, etc. But we are not signing it to preclude people from taking it. So it's basically just going to be there like today. People can take it if they want, but we are not directing people to it.
People meaning trucks?
I actually think large trucks should be precluded from taking Roaring Brook Road. I mean, I don't know if you've been on that road, but it is narrow and windy, and if you have a large, other than for local deliveries, obviously on that street, I think that they should be precluded from going down that street. We don't want to have a very large number of trucks going down Roaring Brook
The
Road.
problem isn't the side of and forgive me, I'm so bad with east and west. It's not the side of Roaring Brook Road that the high school's on, it's the other side.
Correct.
That's
So what I can do
narrow
is-
windy hill.
What I can do is find out who owns the road and work out with them. For the detour, we can certainly just put up a no truck sign.
I think that's a town road.
It's a
Yeah.
town.
But, okay, so a permanent solution has to come from the town, but we
Okay.
can definitely put a no truck sign on it for the detour if you want.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think that's, it needs to be revisited. I appreciate that.
The chief did ask me to mention to you just variable signboards and whether or not they may be available for us to be, alerting. We were actually thinking all the way down, maybe 120 by 133 before, to catch trucks down. Whether, before they enter 120 because there's no place for them to turn around once they, start coming into town. Would those be available for us to use to alert traffic?
Yes, I believe there is some already included in the signing plan, but I will call them out more directly the next time I send to the town and we can add or adjust as necessary.
That's terrific, thank you so much.
I have just two questions. How far in advance is the signage about the detour gonna go up?
At least 2 weeks, but we can make it longer if you want.
Well, if we have the ability to put things on our community sign, this would be really important to get out to the community, that there's gonna be major construction and road closures on 120.
Yeah, I think as much notice as we can give it is through as many channels as possible.
I agree completely, thank you.
And then will the closure be indicated on GPS?
We typically reach out to the mapping services and alert them. That does not mean that they always put it up in a timely manner. I believe when we closed Route 118, although the notifications went out the Friday beforehand, it seemed like early in the week, people were caught by surprise, but by the end of the week, it was certainly up. So we can try to work better with those private services to get things mapped correctly right away.
Yeah, I appreciate that as someone who still relies on GPS a lot.
All right, any other questions?
See, I will be the resident engineer on this project.
Saeed, why don't you come up and introduce yourself?
We need you to
Saeed,
speak
you
into
need
the
to come up.
microphone so people who are watching from home can hear.
It's a simple comment I just want to, because I will be informing Waze before the.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. My name is Junaid Syed. I will be the resident engineer on this project. I will of course keep you posted on the progress of this project on a weekly basis. So before the start, once the signs are up, the variable signs, I will be sending a message to Waze and Google Maps and letting them know that we are closing this roadway in this window.
Perfect.
So that, so people will probably get some notification. We have been doing this for the other 3 culverts we did, we'll continue the same process.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, and we had mentioned this months ago, you know, in the supervisor's report that this was going to happen, but now we actually have more solidified dates. So, you know, this is gonna be in the supervisor's report tomorrow, and certainly we will keep reminding people as we get closer to July that this is gonna happen.
Yeah, we also do a townwide mailing, the end of May. And this may be a good thing for us to just take and put in there to, you know, for those people that, you know, don't get on their computer so much or whatever, just to alert people. So we'll see what we can do about a notification.
All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much, gentlemen, really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in waiting.
All right, so now we are going to turn to the Northern Westchester Wireless Master Plan. It was delayed a bit, but we are happy to hear about this. I see Susan is on, and this will be able to inform where we have significant gaps in cell phone and wireless coverage, and we can start then taking this master plan and having further conversations about if we want to put up cell phone towers or what we may want to do to rectify the loss of wireless service. So, welcome.
There she
Hello,
is.
thank you. Thank you. Do I have the ability to share my screen?
You do.
Okay, great. Excuse me.
Okay, we see it.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So we have completed the first draft of the wireless communication master plan. And the brief overview is that this project includes Yorktown, Somers, North Salem, Lewisboro, Pound Ridge, Bedford, Mount Kisco, and Newcastle. And the objectives were to identify wireless coverage gaps, get information from the communities on how they might support filling in those gaps, and then to provide you some solutions. So collectively, we provided a survey across the study area, and we had thousands of people respond to those surveys. And the overall commentary that we received is that the citizenry in the study area would like improved wireless cell phone services. Most of the communities, the residents indicated that there was a lack of coverage where they lived, when they traveled, and that they would use their wireless devices and would depend on them more if their connectivity was better. They also voiced a concern about the aesthetics and wanting intentional placement of concealed wireless facilities in the future. They wanted to promote a greater transparency from the wireless industry by requiring applicants to demonstrate radio frequency compliance with FCC standards. That's usually done through compliance statements when a new application is provided. There was interest in addressing small wireless facility build-out standards, and collectively, there was encouragement from those who participated in the poll to continue to use public assets for new wireless infrastructure. Doing this would allow the individual communities to have greater control over the placement, the long-term maintenance of those facilities, the control of the design and what it was going to look like, in addition to generating revenue from the service providers through the rent that they would pay. We assessed all of the antenna facilities for wireless phones throughout the study area, as shown on the map on the left. The individual dots represent the sites that we went to, and we included a 1 mile perimeter around the study area so that we could see how sites just outside the jurisdictional boundaries affected the propagation patterns. Collectively, there's 107 sites within the entire study area. Almost all of these sites are macro wireless facilities. There are only 3 small wireless facilities in the study area. They have not been constructed yet. They're approved in the town of Bedford. And you can see here that in Newcastle, you have a total of 9 within your jurisdictional boundary. We then did a simulated propagation study from those existing wireless facilities and the proposed wireless facilities so that we could see what a coverage pattern would look like from the sites that are there. Now, this propagation pattern is not specific to a certain service provider. We assumed that if a facility was there, then it could accommodate co-location. Couldn't accommodate a co-location of another provider right now, then the site could possibly be modified to do that. And so this is assuming that all providers would be on the same facilities, maximizing co-location. The yellow that's shown on the map represents superior coverage from the antenna that's mounted at these different locations. And if it's yellow, it's symbolizing in-building coverage. So if you're inside, say, an office building or inside a residence or a retail commercial building, if you see the yellow, it represents that you would have good coverage. If you go into as you move out into these green colors, those are strong enough signals for outdoors and in the vehicle while traveling, but not necessarily for inside a building. The blue is really just outdoors. And where there is no coloration, those are your most serious gaps of no connectivity and very poor coverage in those areas. So you can see throughout the study area, you have significant gaps. So we did the overall study, and then each community within the study area received their own coverage, simulated coverage maps. So this is the one that we created for the town of Newcastle. And you can see that here are your 9 sites represented by C1 through C9. And then the sites that are outside of your perimeter are either outside the study area, so they're symbolized with an O with a number, or they could be in Mount Kisco. They are your M sites, or they could be in Yorktown and they are your Y sites. But you can see if we had left some of these out of the perimeter, it would have given a false reading of the coverage, because you can see how these sites in Yorktown are providing service inside of Newcastle. So it's very important that we included those.
Can you just indicate on that map where the sawmill is and where the Taconic is?
Sure, right here, there's the sawmill. This is the sawmill right here,
Okay.
and the Taconic is right here.
Oh, Taconic is good coverage.
There we go. And the types of facilities that you have are all towers, or mostly towers, excuse me. Of the 9 facilities, you have 6 towers and you have 3 base stations. Base stations are when the antenna mount on something other than a tower. Most commonly in your area are the transmission towers. You have all macro facilities, and there is one in the study area that has macro cell on also a public safety site. And that is the icon here, which is half red and half black. You have within your zoning jurisdiction, you have 6 of your 9 sites on private property. You have 1 on public property, and you have 2 in the utility easement. You have 5 of the 9 sites are non-concealed. You have 3 that are semi-concealed, and you have 1 that's approved as a concealed facility, but not quite built yet. or it wasn't built at the time that we did the assessments. So we look at this visually, the pattern, and as you just pointed out, one of the striking obvious patterns is that along the Sawmill Parkway, you have a number of sites collected here. That's not uncommon because the industry has traditionally tried to cover your major corridors. You have the coverage here along the Taconic, and then you have in your little neighborhood urban development area here, you've got a number of sites. But we take this and we compare this propagation pattern to other variables that are of great interest to us. The first one is population density. We want to see where the people in the town reside and how the propagation pattern is building out in those areas. So again, you have most of your sites are in the more populated areas of the town. And then you have some in these very low densely populated areas. So this light area represents 0 to 500 people per square mile, whereas this darker shade is 2,000 to 3,000 people per square mile. So it stands to reason that the subscriber base is larger in here. And so that's why you see more of your sites in that area as well. We also look at the land use, and if you compare where the sites are located, you'll see that 1, 2, 3, 4 of the sites are located in your commercial zoning districts. And then you have some other sites in the community service district, but your largely residential areas, which are this sort of dark yellow brown, do not have really any facilities in those areas. That contributes to a lack of coverage where people reside. And then the last exercise that we go through is we compare the number of facilities to the number of people per square mile to see if you have enough infrastructure within those areas to accommodate the number of subscribers. And areas that are green are generally acceptable areas of capacity for the number of sites per subscriber base. When you get into the oranges and these red areas, those are really poor capacity areas because there's not enough infrastructure to accommodate the number of people who are living per square mile in those areas. And then again, where you don't see any coloration, just like in the propagation maps, no coloration here are your definite gap areas. So our next exercise, once we saw those maps, was to think about what you would do to fill in those areas, how those areas might get filled in. And so we looked at a combination of macro cell facilities and small wireless. And the macro cell facilities that we looked at were in the 100-foot range. These would be fill-in macro cell facilities within the 100-foot range. And then we added the use of small wireless facilities. And we did that for a number of reasons. One, the concern about the citizenry and the view sheds was striking. There's great concern about the view sheds, and you do have a lot of scenic view sheds in Newcastle, especially along the parkway. So we didn't want to recommend a lot of tall macro cell facilities because, well, for that reason. And so the macro cell will always continue to be the backbone of the wireless industry because they provide the greatest coverage, the greatest capacity. They really do the best job at meeting demands of wireless service subscribers. But these small wireless facilities They help densify the network. They can bring coverage into areas where there isn't much coverage presently, and they don't have the visual appearance on the skyline as these larger facilities do. So we worked up a recommendation of the use of potentially 5 macro cell sites, as I mentioned, around the 100-foot level. And they're identified on the next series of maps that I'm going to show you as NT 1 through 5. So when you see a C, that stands for, that's your community, Newcastle. NT stands for new tower or new macro cell. Again, it could be on a base station, but you don't have a lot of 100-foot tall buildings. So most of them would be on a new tower. And where you see C and P, NP stands for a new pole or the use of an existing utility pole in that area. And we came up with a series of 26 of those throughout the town at the 50-foot range.
Susan, let me just ask you one quick question.
Yes.
Given that the number of our residents overwhelmingly favored the concealed cell towers as opposed to the non-concealed cell towers,
Mhm.
can these macro cell towers that you're talking about be like flagpoles, for instance, or is it only like the image you just showed?
No, they definitely can be concealed.
Okay,
Yes, all these facilities could be concealed.
all right, thank you.
Mhm. So when we zeroed in on the potential fill-ins, we identified the areas that have the worst coverage in these blue areas. So you've got 1, 2, 3, let's see, 3, 4, well, let's see, that's not yours. 3 areas of great concern. And then we go by the quadrants. We tried to, I mean, you've got sort of an unusually shaped boundary, so it's not a perfect view, but in looking at the Northeast, we recommend 2 macro cells and the use of 9 small wireless facilities in this area. And because you've only got one site here in this most northern section, you need some infrastructure to tie down here to the south. So we're showing the use of a couple of small wireless facilities here and the potential new macro cell here at NT5 and a potential new facility here in the vicinity of NT2. And then the rest of these are all the small wireless facilities, trying to, again, tie in evenly a connection between existing C3 to NT2 to NT5 and up to C1, and then supplementing with the smaller facilities in between those to address some capacity and coverage. As we move to the west, we run into kind of an unusual situation in that you do have a outlined blue area here with really poor coverage, but your population density is so low out here, it's less than 500 people per square mile, that we think that just one new macro cell should help bring coverage into this area. So we're just showing one. Had you had a lot more population density over here in this area, we may have shown another one, but we're just showing one facility in this area because of the low population density. And then as we move to the southeast, this is where you've got some of your biggest gaps. And so we're showing the use of potentially one new macro cell here at NT1 and the use of 12 small wireless facilities in these areas to help bring in coverage and capacity into this section of the town. Now, the small wireless facilities ideally would go on existing utility structures, but we don't know how amicable and willing to let those structures be used by the utility company are. So what we say is if you can't go, if they can't use a specific utility pole in that spot, then you would need to have one added either in that right of way or near that utility easement on either public or private property. And then we conclude with some additional recommendations. And the first is to take this to the next planning level of pinpointing specific locations in those regions that we showed you for your new macro cells, and perhaps even doing some pre-design. Maybe you go ahead and say, well, in this area, we really want to see a flagpole, or in this area, we want to see a three-legged concealed facility, and have that sort of prepared for the industry so that when they come in, they know what the expectation is. They want to know from you what you want. And so having that ready for them, we think would be very, very helpful. The second takeaway is for you to communicate with the utility pole owners to find out if they have a willingness to allow small cells on their poles. And if they do, go ahead and share your design objectives with them so that there's not a disconnect when the providers come in and start using the poles and how you want them to look. Because we've seen that happen a lot, where the community has specifically said in their ordinances that they want to promote concealed facilities, but the utility company that has the pole in the right of way or in the utility easement does not realize that, and then they start issuing permits for non-concealed facilities. So it's better to be proactive, to work with the utility pole owners now, put some design guidelines in place so that as you begin to see these sites get deployed, they're meeting your goals and objectives. The third would be to develop a standard lease agreement for community-owned properties with pre-approved terms of lease rates, durations of terms, access, easement, information, utilities to the site. Go ahead and get together a draft lease that the town board can agree upon, so that when the industry comes in, you don't get lost in the weeds of what you do about a lease and what would a lease look like. If you go ahead and have your lease points and your deal points laid out, it lets the industry know that you're ready for business. And with that comes your design standards of what you want to see on those properties. And you have a little package prepared for them to show that you're ready to work together to get these sites built out. The fourth point is to meet with the wireless and fiber providers and to discuss how you can improve your fiber coverage. The sites, when they get constructed, they can either have fiber, and that means that they're lit up because they have fiber, or they could be dark. And if they're dark, their signal doesn't propagate as far. So you'll get more coverage and capacity from your sites if you have fiber going to them. So it would be beneficial to be able to identify which sites have fiber. How can you get fiber to those sites? As your new sites come in, how do you get fiber to those sites? How do you get backup generators to those sites so that if they go down, they will still be in operation, and that they can broadcast their signal as much as possible because of the backbone infrastructure that they have going to those facilities. And then 5 would be to verify and map out your existing fiber services and to see if wherever they stop or wherever they stub, how can you extend them into your community, especially for your wireless infrastructure. And then maybe even consider helping to launch a fiber build out into some of these underserved areas. Because if the industry sees that you have fiber in an area, they may be more likely to develop in that area more quickly than if there is no fiber. So those are some of our, well, those are our recommendations and our takeaways. I do want to commend you on a fabulous ordinance that you have. We did review your ordinance. We did not have any real suggestions to change to your ordinance, to make changes to your ordinance. I think you already have in there hierarchies and preferences for concealed sites, and your code was updated recently, so you have consistency with the federal standards. And I was speaking a little fast because I know you have a lot on your plate, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, I want to thank you for getting this done for us in these presentations. I think this is going to provide a lot of useful information that we can then use to speak with our residents and figure out what the appetite is for improving their cellular service, either through these macro or small towers. So thank you. I think it was very helpful. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a very quick question. What is approximately 50 feet and 100 feet? Like that I might commonly think of. Like what's like a regular utility pole?
Most of your utility poles that carry local power are around the 35-foot range, I think.
Yeah.
And so if
Those
you
are the
can
new ones we just put
visualize
down.
another 15 feet on top of that, it's also the shape of the pole is very much like a wood utility pole. It's not a bulky pole like what you see for your macro cells.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, I would just, first I'd like to say thank you very much for such a thorough presentation and survey of our community. I just want to make sure that we all get the opportunity to see what all the options are, to the extent that we
course.
can make options and what,
Of course.
yeah, and what that would look like, you know, whether we'd have the opportunity to look at the concealment options.
Well,
and
they're
all
not
of
putting
that.
anything in for us. This would be
Right,
our design standards, and then we would go out to utility companies and
right,
and
so we
see
put
how
out an
it goes.
RFP for utility, I mean, how,
I don't
what are
know.
the next steps to
I-
installation?
Sure. So we don't build out the network, and we're not suggesting that you build out the network. This is really a proactive tool for you to now take to the next step of putting some design standards around what the recommendations are, and then meeting with the service providers to say, here, this is what we want, and how can we work together to get these sites built, because our citizenry wants it. We've got, over 70% say that they don't have good cell coverage where they reside, and over 70% say they get dropped calls when they're driving throughout the community. And that's a real challenge, especially when you have most of your calls being made for 911 purposes through a wireless phone. And so it's really
And I apologize, in all fairness, this was a question really for us, as to.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so, I'm sorry, didn't mean to hurt you.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
not just our design
before we leave,
standards, but
yeah.
we're gonna take this map as to where would be most advantageous to put these
Right.
towers,
And
and then
those-
actually look at that physically and see if it,
Right, is it town
Right, does it
property?
make
Where is it
sense?
exactly?
Exactly.
What view shed does it impact? Those sort of considerations, so that we can come up with some suggestions as to locations.
So it
So
sounds like,
design standards and then locations, so
it's in our
we're not
court now.
there yet. And only then would we consider going to providers and talking to them.
so Jill, the
Is there a
staff would
Absolutely.
make recommendations to the board as to all.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'm just trying to establish what we do next, once you know, having seen the.
Yeah, this is a fabulous tool, but we have a
It's
work
great,
cut out for us.
yes, we do.
Yeah.
Okay,
This
thank
is
you.
very helpful.
Do we have a report from them?
We have this in paper, it's
Oh.
rather dense, so this was our attempt to break it down and give you the abridged version.
And
So that-
Susan,
I'd
can
love
you
to see
send
the
us
deep
this
one if you don't
version,
mind.
because I wanna put it in our newsletter as well,
Yes, I'm happy to send it
when
to
you
you.
presented today.
Yes,
Perfect,
Thank you, Susan, we so
Thank you.
appreciate it.
All right, well,
Yeah,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Sorry to keep you.
thank you. This has been a great project. I appreciate your support. And don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions in the future.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. All right, so now we are going to turn to a discussion about veteran memorial banners. Do we have that sample? Where is that?
It's in the
back there.
It's back
office.
there.
I can get it.
So
Jim could talk to you all about them.
great. So Jim came to us and come up in 1 second to talk about, you know, is there a way that we can honor our veterans? And we have seen what some other towns have done, and there's a proposal that we want to make this available to the public. And banners would basically hang from Memorial Day to Veterans Day. And Jim, I'm gonna call you up to talk about it a little more, and we do have a sample banner that Jill's going to get, that we've had made. That's a stock photo, but the rest is on. So Jim, you wanna come on up?
Okay. Well, this has been talked about for past couple of years, and we finally got everybody got time together to look into it. And as you said, I know Mount Pleasant has it, Yorktown has it, many towns have it adopted this, and it's simple. What I don't know if I should let Jill's looking out now, but we're going to start small. We're going to start slow. We have 19 names on the monument. These are people who lived here in Newcastle and who died in service, including Sergeant Shea. We're going to take 10 of those, or 9 of those, and Sergeant Shea, who we have pictures for, and those are going to be the first 10 that will go up. And we're going to also, this first year, because there's not a great deal, but we're going to go out to the public and we're going to get the first 10 more. We are going to try to get people who have, Eric, Gabby, Joe Goldreich, who and some other long-term people. We're going to try to advise on that and get those folks in place for this first year. And the town, I think the purpose of this is to see that the town, Jill, do you want to
So,
help me here?
Yeah.
To pay for the first 10. Obviously, the families of the KIAs that are on the monument, they're all long gone. It was predominantly World War II, some World War I, predominantly World War II, maybe one Korea and 2 Vietnam, and 1 more recent. So we're going to ask the town to do that. We're going to continue to try to collect photos of the other ones, and then as time goes on, they'll go up each year before Memorial Day. And Jill and Walter Haas have been out and looked at poles, and we're talking about poles here. There's many of the poles downtown have so much stuff on them and these are 5 feet tall, so they have to go at least, the bottom
they
has
have
to
to
be
be a
19
minimum of
feet.
14.
14 feet, I'm sorry.
because trucks are 13
Yeah.
feet.
So, and each person will have their rank, their service, branch of service, rank. There'll be a section for whether they were KIA, Wounded in Action, and 2 of their medals, their top 2 medals. And now, it'll go out to the town, it'll be on a website.
So, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, so the thought was that we're partnering with a company that's gonna produce these for us.
Oh, yeah.
The ones that are on the monument right now in front of the train station, we were saying we would take those and as an introductory program, pay for that, at least 10.
So
Then,
one time,
at least 10. Then what we were planning to do was open it up to residents. The first year, it's gonna be more limited, but then eventually it won't. Hopefully, we have room on all our poles. But, and essentially, a family could pay. They would pay to have a banner. They would fill out online all the information that's gonna be set
Exactly.
forth on there. They will pay the town for that banner. Then it will be produced, the individuals will sign off on it, so we don't need to worry about checking spelling of names, etc. They will sign off on it, and then we would be able to display those throughout town. And again, they would hang from Memorial Day until Veterans Day each year. And that's the example we picked out. Obviously, they would provide their own picture and the information, but that's generally the example. And one thing we loved when we were looking at it, so some of the towns have the picture and information on one side, the back just says, we thank our veterans. We thought that it would be nicer to actually have the picture and the information duplicated on both sides, so that whichever direction you're driving from, you get to see what really is the most relevant information. So I'm pretty excited about it. I know you are. They've been great
We'd
meetings.
like to do it, and it's something that's gonna last. This is a one-time cost. Once we buy it, that's it, and then the DPW will put it up and take it down at the end of the period. And
There is gonna be a $50 fee for that each
Excuse
year.
me?
It's a $50 fee for that each additional year.
Okay, but it'll be it'll be useful for quite some time, and over time, I have no real idea anymore how many we ultimately get, but I can't imagine. I know we have more than 50 veterans, but I doubt we're going to get too many more than that. But over time, it could grow. But it does honor those and gives those, especially those whose lives were given and for the country, will be honored. That's pretty much it.
And we wanted to bring it up now because we want the board to approve this so we can order those so that they will be here in time
We're trying to get it done for this year.
Memorial
And
Day.
the company does a lot of these. I know
Yes.
Jill has and I have. Mount Pleasant has been doing this for, well, last year was the first year they did it, but several of the other towns have dealt with the same company.
Many towns, if you go on, you can actually see all the towns in New
Yeah.
York, and they're a significant number.
Yeah, so, and these folks are good. Jill has talked to them, I've
Yeah,
talked to
no,
them.
they seem like they're very professional.
Right.
Yes.
So
And
we'll
this
see.
is the Memorial Day Committee with Peter Goudet and Dave Egger have worked, all of us have worked together on it, so it's.
And these are obviously gonna hang throughout Millwood and Chappaqua Hamlets. We also were going to give people the ability to at least designate their preference as to if they would like their the banner to hang in Millwood or Chappaqua, depending on where in Newcastle they live. We obviously cannot guarantee that it will be where their preference is, depending on the availability of poles and heights where it will work, but we're certainly gonna give that preference as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So with any luck, if the board approves this tonight, then what we would do is I would contact the company tomorrow and they would set us up with all of our credentials. And the deadline for submission is gonna be May 1st.
So it gives people
Did you-
4 or 5 weeks.
Jim, it's $250 per banner, right?
Right.
Yes.
And that would be the same cost if someone wants to sponsor it? Or is there a different cost in other
No,
words?
So that's
well,
what
if somebody
they
else
would
wants
pay.
to sponsor, we've already, without going into detail, we've already, a few of the people who will go on, there's going to be some groups and individuals who will sponsor others. And a check will go to the town, and then, and that'll be it. So yes,
Thank you so
other,
much for bringing this to us. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
thank Jill for all her work on it.
Yeah, Jim, I think it's a really nice way to recognize our fallen heroes, and
Good.
thanks to you and the committee for
Okay.
putting all the work in.
Yeah, thank you. I really love this idea. I've seen it in other towns and I'm glad that we're gonna join
Good.
them. I do have a few questions if you guys don't mind.
Sure.
Jill, do we know what the capacity is of poles?
We don't, it all depends on how quickly Con Ed gets rid of our double poles and moves the equipment from one pole to the other, so that'll be my next project to remind them about.
Okay.
Because it's actually Jim didn't know what I was talking about when I initially, he said to me, there's telephone poles all over the place, and I'm like, take a look at them, and he's like, oh my gosh, look at the stuff that's on these poles.
Yeah, when you look closely, it's amazing how
Yeah, how
there's
much-
very few downtown. There's very few empty poles, and especially you have to go high. You know, they're going to be hung right at where most of the additional stuff. It's not just the wires, all the boxes and
Yeah,
so on.
Other questions?
Yeah, I do have a couple of other questions.
Okay.
Logistically, are we going to store the banners?
So families are gonna have the option
Okay.
of either taking them home, or leaving them with us so that we will take and rehang them.
Okay.
Right now, if you go down to DPW, you'll see that there's quite the collection of triangle signs and banners and things like that that stay there, so these will just be with those.
And then my last question is, I know you said that we were gonna opt to put the image on both sides. Could we consider doing some that are not personalized to make the general thanks to folks who are not?
Well, each
It
one,
says it on the
each
bottom.
one
Does
says,
it? Okay, I'm sorry, I can't
No,
see.
it says proudly honored by a grateful community.
down below.
Right.
Because you said some of them on the back
Well,
in other towns just say thank you to our veterans or,
Oh, I think it's on the back.
right, but we're not going to have that option, right?
We're
No.
proudly honored by, we're gonna have
It just
a
says-
grateful community.
Yeah, on the bottom.
So I mean, if somebody wanted to, say, sponsor one that didn't have an individual's name but had a,
I can find out of whether or not we can
If
do
we can
that.
do a general one, just saying
Yeah.
thank you to our veterans,
Yeah.
we can look into
it
that.
just, I think it's something that might be nice to add as well for those who.
Just
Yeah, I'll find out
given the
about it.
scarcity of appropriate polls, I would rather give preference to the individual ones, but I hear what you're saying, and if we can have
Well, I
one or
mean, it's,
two
because we've made the,
interspersed would be nice.
Yeah,
since
and
we've
some-
made the decision not to put that on the reverse, I would just like to fill that gap, just to make sure that we know everyone is recognized.
Well, the other part of putting the veterans and the same on both sides is we're not gonna have them on both sides of the street
Mhm.
in many places because of this problem with the poles. So that way,
See them in
people
both
driving either
directions.
way could see them.
Mhm.
Yeah, it makes
But that,
sense.
I understand your idea, and maybe that's something, if we get this first year done, that we could add it for later, for the next time around, because there'll be more ordered over the next few years.
Yeah, great.
All right.
So
Okay.
Jim, I'm just gonna borrow you tomorrow morning, because I wanna make sure that all of the drop downs that we discussed are covered, because I didn't do one for injured in action, I did it for killed in action, missing in action, POW. So if there's another category that we need
That's
to
probably
We
include.
can talk about that tomorrow.
That's probably-
All right,
Okay.
thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
All right, and the next topic is going to be the discussion of a Facebook page for the Committee on Race, Equity, and Inclusion. Thank you, Larry and Kimberly, for staying on so late.
So sorry.
So under our town social media policy, we don't allow committees to have Facebook pages without the prior approval of the town board. So that's why, the CREI has come to us tonight. Now, it's my understanding from speaking with Larry that the page would predominantly using, certainly correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just paraphrasing our conversation, said it would predominantly be used at this point to push out information like events that the CREI may be having or to, commemorate a holiday, for instance. But that it also could be utilized at some point for messaging as well. I think we had talked about, who is going to oversee what that messaging is, and that's something I think we should talk about as a board. But I understand the need to want to make sure that specifically with regard to, issues for race, equity, inclusion, that every vehicle to disseminate information that can be utilized, you'd like to utilize. Did I summarize
Yes.
that correctly?
Yes. So
Okay.
we want to reach as many residents as possible.
Okay, so I guess I don't have a problem with a Facebook page generally. I am concerned with, not necessarily with this board, but obviously this will continue into the future. So we just want to make sure that any, statements about any either incidents or views on topics are just appropriately vetted because the committee is speaking for the town. So, while I have full faith that everyone currently on the CREI will be saying the right things, we can't guarantee that obviously in the future. So it's just something that I thought the board should discuss, who is going to review statements that are put out on that social media platform.
And I'm sorry, another question, for clarity, who has posting ability, who has administrative ability? Is it everyone?
Oh, well, we haven't started yet, so those technical details that we'll discuss later. But we were told that we need to have permission to create a Facebook page first. And I don't use Facebook, so I do not know the details involved.
I guess what I would say to Lisa's question is I would assume that the committee would operate as it always has, and I'm liaison to the committee, just so everyone knows. And the committee has put out a couple of statements already and has run it through the town board.
Mhm.
So I don't see any reason why that would change, because that's how the committee's always operated. And the Facebook page shouldn't change that.
So I
So,
agree
yeah.
with that, actually.
Yeah.
I think we would want to put verbiage in place that says maybe it's the chairs that are posting, and that posts other than informational posts, do need to be approved by the board eventually.
That's the intent, just like we've always, sent you copies prior in getting to get approval to make a statement. And we just want the Facebook page to kind of be an extension that people can go to, and they don't have to try to search everywhere else if they want to look back at a statement, or they want to look back at a holiday or an event or what have you. It's going to be kind of like a shopping cart with everything that pertains to us. So yeah, the approval would be requested anyway.
Okay.
And also, can I quickly add? So, Lisa, you mentioned about the chairs, and also I think that the person designated by the committee who does the posting, in addition just to the chairs, that will be and make it easier for administration of the Facebook page.
That makes sense. We won't make you learn Facebook.
No, they're putting it on me. He's so kind.
So this is, I just want to clarify, this is literally just Facebook. This isn't more social media. I just want to.
Right now, the request is just for Facebook,
Okay.
correct?
We haven't even contemplated Instagram or anything else. We've really only contemplated Facebook, and it really is mostly at this point in time for informational purposes for the public.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Anyone else have any thoughts? So, all right, I think next steps would be, let's just put some general guidelines in place as to, again, who can post that informational posts can be put out there without approval, but anything that's a statement should be approved by the town board.
Do other committees or boards have Facebook presences?
I don't believe they do. I think our SAB does.
I believe so.
Yeah, I think the SAB does.
Okay, so is there like a common set of guidelines that they all use? Is that in the policy? Or?
It's a new social media policy that we just enacted last year, so not really, but I think we should develop those, and then we can utilize it for the CREI. And we have had discussions with the SAB about their Facebook page.
Facebook just seems to be a very commonly used tool for communication in the town, so I figured it'd be good to standardize and promote more communication.
Great.
Yeah, and I would think we would do establish those new protocols with an eye towards them applying to other committees as well.
Absolutely.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Mm-hmm. All right, so
Will the committee then come forward with those details in terms of,
well, I think it's something, it's not just the committee, although we run it by the committee afterward, but I think it's something the town board needs to just put those protocols in place, because again, they would apply to every committee.
Right.
All right, so thank you. Yeah, Larry?
Thank you for the support.
So essentially, we can actually, it's going to take some time. So it looks as though as long as we follow the protocols you decide, the town board decides on, we can move forward in starting to design it, because that's going to take some time. So I'd love to be able to just start doing that at this point, so that it's ready to go when we get your approval.
Well,
think you
Kim,
can
I thought
start
you're a
designing.
magician.
Pardon me? Oh, I'm a
I thought
musician.
you.
Yeah, that's me.
You certainly can start designing it, you know, on a parallel path.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly.
you.
Thanks, Larry.
Have a good night.
Thank you
Thank
too.
Have a good
Thanks
night.
for bearing with us.
It's fine. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so then the next things to discuss in the work session are really just some administrative items. Jill, do you want to walk us through those?
Sure. Okay, very quickly, just adoption of minutes from February 2023. We've got authorization to release some cash bond agreements from 19 Heath Code and 51 Kerry. This is all construction projects where the work has been done to the town's satisfaction. There's a change order overrun for Tectonic for the Upper Minkle Dam. This is for services that Tectonic is doing regarding inspection services. If the board will recall, the Minkle Dam project is actually being covered by a substantial FEMA grant. However, we still need to approve any overruns from the original contract that were awarded. Next is we get CHIPS reimbursement every year based upon our road inventory, and so we are updating our existing road and adding a couple more, so we should be receiving more CHIPS funding, which is always a great thing. Always makes Rob happy to hear that. We need to approve the new electric service for the Bedford Road pump stations. Our ongoing project, I bless you. Yeah. Nothing all that exciting.
All right, anyone have any questions on those?
Nope, not.
Okay, so then if I could please have a motion to adjourn the work session, open the town board meeting.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, well, welcome now to the town board section of our meeting of March 28th. We are going to start with any, I don't have any announcements other than I wanted to say thank you to our Recreation and Parks Department, our Department of Public Works, and our Police Department for what was a fabulous spring egg extravaganza this past Sunday. I was out there to see all the happy and adorable kids running around collecting all 12,000 eggs that were out there. There were 12,000 eggs and a lot of smiles and squeals of delight, and I want to thank everyone who helped to put this event together, and it was a good call on the rain date because we ended up with beautiful weather on Sunday. So thank you again for everyone who put that together and for everyone who came out to partake in the lovely day. In terms of Community Corner, I just wanted to say happy birthday to Robert Fleischer and also a happy birthday to Angie, our cow. Jill, Town Administrator's Report.
Just very quickly, tax office has been working diligently on preparing those tax bills. Everyone literally in town hall has a stack of tax bills in front of them, and we're stuffing. They get mailed on April.
We're gonna try to mail them Friday.
All right, Friday. They will be in your post office, in your mailbox by April Fool's Day. So sorry about that.
And don't forget, you can post-date your checks.
Yes, we have a drop box downstairs. There will be more information coming about them, but you should be looking for them. If you, as opposed to your bank, is responsible to pay your tax bills and you haven't received your tax bill by the end of next week, you need to call the tax office. It's 238-4773. And just very briefly, GRPS, which is the new company for New York leak detection, They will be, once again, patrolling our streets at night. So it flips people out sometimes when they see a box truck very slowly moving through their neighborhood at night. They're listening for water leaks, and they do this in the middle of the night. It's very quiet. They don't have a lot of, obviously not a lot of road noise, not a lot of noise from around, and there's not a lot of water usage. And we've been really successful at saving a ton of money and tremendous gallons of gas.
You should see those guys' ears when they walk out. Their ears are huge. Ridiculous.
All right, funny guy. Anything else? Okay, and we'll certainly put a reminder about that
we'll
in
put
the
it in
report.
tomorrow. I
Tomorrow.
just want to mention it to people just in case they saw it tonight that they should not be alarmed.
Yes. Okay, any public comment or new business? Anyone here? Is there anyone online? Okay.
I want to make a very, very brief comment, and I'm sure this is on everyone's mind. Nashville, what happened to those children and the school staff and whomever else was shot and killed, it's really an epidemic, and I'm sure we've all said it in many ways that we've all failed, we've all not done enough, and it's not just on a local level, it's not necessarily on a county or state, but definitely on a federal level. Well, I should take that back, it's a little bit of everything, but it's got to start somewhere. No one's going to have the answer up here right now, but Nashville is no different, I hate to say it, than Newcastle, more than just the letter N. It's remarkable how this continues to happen and nothing gets done. Again, I realize that we're just local council people that can't do much, but it's frightening. Not in my memory as a child did any of us have to deal with this kind of fear, that you have to worry about your child going to school or just some random act of violence. There's certainly many pieces involved, and mental health certainly is an issue, but there's a difference between a knife and a firearm and an AR-15 or an automatic weapon. But I don't have the answer, but it's really frustrating, and we just have to all, I think, be cognizant of that when we make our decision at the ballot, when we support people locally, state, and federally, that there's a real cancer, and it's not going away.
So Jeremy, I agree with you, in a pre-sneak peek of my supervisor's report for tomorrow actually discusses this exact thing. And I do advocate that and urge everyone to contact your state and federal representatives to demand that we take action, because thoughts and prayers are really no longer enough. And we need actionable legislation to stop this in our country.
I would say, we have a Republican congressperson now, and hopefully he will consider the concerns of all of his constituents in terms of firearm legislation. And as a member of the Republican Party, hopefully he can share that with some of his colleagues.
Yeah, I don't want to make this too political here, but I will say that our congressman has been incredibly responsive to our town, more than our former congressman has. So I'm hoping that he will take that into account, but
So let me finish
I don't want to make it.
to finish what I'm saying. I think it's very important for all of our elected leaders, but certainly those who have access to the power and access to the party that's in power, to take a stand that's an important stand for this community and all their constituents, and that is firearm and firearm safety and access to firearms. So I make no apologies for that comment. Politics are politics, but it's a fact that when you're in that party of power, whatever it may be, you have access. So hopefully change starts somewhere.
Thank you.
If I may, I would just like to add to that the safety of our children and of this country's children goes far beyond partisan politics, and it's
Sure.
really time for everyone to recognize that.
Certainly.
So
Agreed.
thank you for bringing that up.
And I would also urge our schools to discuss school safety, school resource officers, and anything else that they might do to make sure our children are safe. So now we're going to move to our consent agenda items. Do you want to start?
I will. I move to adopt the consent agenda as submitted, consisting of the following, as listed in the agenda.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to authorize the hiring of Emily Moskowitz for the position of recreation attendant to serve as an art center assistant within the Recreation and Parks Department at the hourly rate of $15 per hour, effective April 10th, 2023.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Jill, it's not, we don't have a resolution on it. I don't know that we need one necessarily right now, but do we want to, resolve to institute the Veterans Banner Program? Because I believe there is a town expenditure at
It'll be
least.
an expense, right, so.
There is a expense for the first 10 banners, which is about
$2,500.
$2,500.
That'll come out of our Memorial Day, fund.
Perfect. So, can somebody move, so moved?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, everybody. Have a great night.